Hello and welcome to CDO Magazine's interview series. My name is Carlos Cruz and I'm one of the data and analytics practice leads for Centric Consulting. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with Luis Velandia, Chief Data and Analytics Officer at Best Doctors Insurance. So nice to see you again, Luis.
Thanks, Carlos, for having me.
So one of the challenges we often see is related to communicating technical insights to non-technical leaders or data insights to non-data people. Have you faced this challenge, and do you have any tips for people trying to overcome this issue?
Of course, yes, Carlos, I do. And yes, I have faced this challenge. And it's a very common challenge, but we can address it with data stories. So how you can actually move from data to decisions. So I believe that sharing complex, technical concepts in a simple and clear language involves creating analogies or metaphors, which can, actually be powerful tools for conveying ideas in a more, relevant way. I think using visual elements such as, charts, graphs, and infographics, they enhance the visual appeal and facilitates the understanding of the data. I think introducing, the business examples to address specific concerns or clarify points for a non-technical audience allows us to foster like a more collaborative and informed decision-making process, because this is super important. Remember that at the end, what we're trying to do is to improve the decision-making process of an area, of a company, etc. But you need to understand, and one of the key messages, Carlos, you need to understand who your audience is so that you can engage with them. You need to engage with them, and it truly works. I have had the opportunity to make a lot of presentations for non-technical people, which have ended up in key actions and therefore informed decisions. So you need to understand who your audience is. You need to understand, okay, there are non-technical people. This is the way I'm going to present. If it's for technical people, this is the way. There are different mechanisms you can use, but I think data storytelling is the right way to use, the right mechanism to use to make sure that people will make decisions.
Fantastic. Digging in just a little bit further, maybe from a different perspective. People tend to see things through their own lenses or hear through their own paradigms. Have you found the need to adapt what data you present and how you present it to better reach certain audiences? Can you share some experiences?
Yeah, well, yes, Carlos, and I think one of an experience, it actually involves, presenting data to a diverse team with varying expertise, within the organization. In this scenario, I had to cater to both, technical experts and those less familiar with technical concepts, right? So and especially when you're explaining like machine learning models, like propensity to lapse model, or churn and things like that, I had to create like a presentation that, that started with a high level overview, like a key insights for the non-technical audience using, like a very straightforward language and intuitive like visuals. For the technical audience, I basically incorporated more like a detailed analysis, like more like an explanation about the model, more of the techniques I used, and specific business related like, examples. So during the presentation, I encourage interaction through questions to actively, engage the technical audience and get their perspectives, because they normally get good insights as well about these type of topics. So this strategy not only improved, the overall understanding, but also led to a meaningful discussions and relevant questions. So I think the visual aspect, Carlos, played like a critical role. I'm very visual. I like to see like diagrams and charts. I think it helps simplify complex concepts, and the human element, that it's a very interesting concept as well. is super useful. The interaction with the technical audience allowed, in this case, for addressing specific concerns from both groups. So I think that's one of the examples where I had to the non-technical people and the technical people. And I think it was a very successful presentation, a lot of questions, a lot of ideas and things like that, and then a lot of actions as well.
Fantastic. So, for a long time, Luis, data governance was viewed as almost a four-letter word. Demand for data governance today, however, is huge. Do you have any pointers you can share to help others find success in their data governance journeys?
Yeah, Carlos, and I think it's something that organizations were not paying attention to before.
Mm.
And yes, I agree. I agree with you. It has become huge and critical to implement. So in terms of best practices, it's crucial to understand that data governance should not be viewed as an isolated concept, but rather as a response to specific needs. And I've experienced this in different companies throughout my career. So when a specific project, requires like addressing information issues such as like, data security and exploitation, I think governance is incorporated to provide control, those guidelines and the strategic alignment. So I would say, Carlos, that my first recommendation will be to actually implement governance, like a data governance program, through like a flagship strategic project linked to data that will facilitate organized, decision making. It is also super critical to integrate governance into the strategic decision-making processes of the organization from the outset. A second piece of advice I would give is to adopt an incremental approach, considering the specificities and unique conditions of each company, because data governance becomes involved pretty much in every organizational process. And I have seen this in every organizational process. So I think the continuous improvement process requires a gradual and consistent approach and avoiding resistance. We know that culture is super important. I've seen that. I think culture is a key component of every transformation program. So this actually helps to avoid that resistance and promote like a more effective and sustainable implementation. So one last message here, Carlos, is data governance is everyone's responsibility. So that's something that organizations and people need to understand.
Oh, Luis, you're saying all my favorite things around data governance.
Yeah.
So thanks for that. Um, Artificial intelligence is, again, kind of re-energized and everyone's talking about it today. Can you tell me your thoughts on data governance relative to AI, particularly to generative AI and LLMs?
Of course, Carlos, and I love this topic, data governance, and it's super important. And data governance plays a fundamental role in AI, right? Because it manages vast amounts of data, for training and generating results. So as a result of this, a robust data governance is essential from my point of view to ensure that like ethical, responsible and reliable AI applications. And we know, Carlos, that AI bias is something that, can happen with the models from their training data, making it, like imperative to implement governance measures that identify and addresses those potential biases, promoting like a fairness and avoiding like unintended consequences and highlighting the importance of data quality, which from my point of view, data quality is one of the key drivers for any data governance program.
Yeah.
So in the case of sensitive data used in AI applications, especially like in LLMs, generating text from receiving or information you use to generate that text, I think that privacy becomes super critical. And I do believe that data governance policies, for example, should focus on data anonymization, encryption, for example, and compliance with privacy regulations to safeguard customer information. And Carlos's model, and these models become more complex, right? So understanding how they reach decisions becomes a challenge. We know that. So implementing governance, practices that foster transparency and reliability in the data, as well as ensuring comprehensibility of decisions, is something that needs to be taken into consideration. So from my experience, and clearly, like designated data stewards are essentials for maintaining these governance practices, facilitating the responsible, development and deployment of AI technologies. And in the dynamic, landscape of generative AI and LLMs, I think that continual collaboration among data scientists, ethicists, and experts is super crucial to refine governance frameworks, to make sure there's a balance between innovation and ethical considerations in the development and deployment of AI. So in my view, Carlos, I think we should strategically prioritize a standard and like a risk balanced framework for AI governance. And obviously, this framework should basically aim to ensure that the ethical is transparent and there's a responsible use of AI technologies, solutions, and then machine learning or deep learning models you can potentially develop. And of course, one of the key messages is that it should involve navigating the complex AI lifecycle, addressing legal and regulatory imperatives, right? So this is super important. There are things like the European Union AI Act, the European Union Data Act, the recent, U.S. executive order on the safe, secure, and trustworthy development of AI and GDPR. So there are things that this one, for example, was released in recently in October. But the message is about emphasizing that trusted transparency and ensuring that compliance with AI governance and the risks along with that should be managed through the implementation of smart controls and oversight mechanisms. So one last point, and all this approach I have just mentioned is aligned with the ISO 42001 requirements, right? Which again, it was published in December 2023. It's very recent. So basically, it actually incorporates technical, policy, and procedural controls to achieve responsible AI objectives and risk assessments while maintaining a sustained performance and ethical AI practices.
Fantastic. Again, saying all my favorite things. So Luis, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time today, sharing your expertise with the CDO magazine community, and sharing some insights from your own personal experiences. So much appreciated. Please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews. And once again, thank you, Luis.
Thank you, Carlos, and have a nice one.